Okay, hello guys. So, today is a special day. I'm gonna build my very first PC. So, in the near future. While assembling the hardware, you will handle some sensitive parts that can break just by touching them. So everything is in your own risk. Assembling a computer is not a witchcraft, but only do this if you are confident in your skills. If available, you could train with old hardware first. So, this is important. Before you touch any hardware, you have to ground yourself, otherwise the static electricity could kill your electronics. To ground yourself, you can touch a ground cable, a metallic radiator, or in Europe, by touching the part of the wall plug, as I show you, but please don't come in contact with one of the holes. Repeat that every time you want to touch something, especially if you have a carpeted floor. Enough for the beginning, let's start the building! So, let's prepare our motherboard. Don't worry if you have another type of motherboard, the positions of most of these slots and plugs will vary from board to board, but will always look the same. Use your motherboard box as a safety, unconductive working place. The first thing we have to do is installing the CPU. Remember to ground yourself. Here you can see the CPU socket. Your CPU socket on a new motherboard will have a security cap on it, because the little pins are very sensitive. Don't touch them under any circumstances. To open the CPU bracket, press the little stick on the right gently down. Slide it to the right and then turn it to the top. You can take the plastic cap carefully out now if you want to. Now let's take the CPU. Place the CPU in the socket without touching it somewhere else than on the edges. The CPU will have a little golden arrow to mark the orientation it has to have on the socket. Read your motherboard manual for more information. The CPU can go in the wrong direction because it has a little notches on the sides which have to fix exactly into the counterparts of the socket. After placing the CPU in the socket and making 100% sure it faces the right direction, close the CPU bracket the same way you opened it, just reverse. Usually this takes a tiny bit more force, and with a tiny bit I mean no brutal force. If you feel uncomfortable with the applied pressure, check once more if the CPU faces the right direction and whether you have the right socket for your CPU. After closing the bracket, we have successfully installed the CPU and with it the most sensitive part of the whole PC. Now we can assemble the RAM stick. Just open the bracket at the top of the RAM slot. Watch out which way around you have to place the RAM stick. You can look at the notch, slide it in the RAM slot and apply a gentle pressure on each end until it snaps into place. Next, we will install the CPU cooler. Before we can mount the CPU cooler, we first have to apply some thermal paste. The thermal paste has the task to connect the CPU with the bottom of the cooler. If you would leave it away, there would be a tiny bit of air between the CPU and the cooler. Since air is a terrible heat conductor and we want to get rid of the heat, we take some thermal paste to create a connection. On the box set coolers, which often come with the CPU, the thermal paste is already applied to the bottom. I would recommend to clean that off. Get some thermal paste in your next hardware store and apply it as we do now, because often the amount of thermal paste is not sufficient. For the applying amount there is a rule: as few as possible, as much as necessary. So take so much that it just fills the CPU, but as thin as After that we put on the cooler. Please read the manual of the cooler, how to assemble the cooler the right way. Every cooler is different. Make sure to use the brackets for the right socket, otherwise it won't fit. When you screw down the screws of the cooler, first screw every screw in just a tiny bit, and then tighten the screws crosswise more and more, bit by bit, until all 4 screws are tight. My aftermarket cooler have these fast lock mechanisms, so I don't have to screw anything. Before we can assemble the motherboard to the case, we have to prepare the case. Sadly, I can't tell you a lot about that because every case is a bit different. Many modern cases are so-called toolless, which only means you can assemble the drives without screws. They are built-in brackets. Read the manual of your case for instructions. Then carefully and slowly lower the motherboard into the case, if possible without the motherboard getting in contact with the sides of the case. At some cases you have to screw in little nuts where the main board will be placed, in order to be able to screw in the motherboard screws. Read your case manual where to screw them. When you place the motherboard on the motherboard nuts, make sure to not slide the main board around. There are sensitive parts on the backside on the motherboard too. When the motherboard sits in place, that's the case if you seal all the nuts through the screw holes. Then screw in the motherboard screw. Again the edges first, crossover, then the screw in the middle. A normal ATX motherboard is held in place by 9 screws. In my case, at the middle there is a little standoff that holds the motherboard in place, so I don't have to screw in there. While I have some space here, I plug in the front and rear coolers, as well as the front I/O panel with all the buttons, LEDs, USBs and audio plugs. The USB and audio plugs just go into the right slots on the motherboard. The power button and the LEDs are a bit more difficult. Sometimes the connectors are hard to reach and the pins are very small. Most modern boards have therefore included a little adapter that allows to do the fieldy part outside of the case. Let's mount our storage drives. For the HDD there are included anti-vibration rays with this case, so I will install them, then slide the HDD in the drive rails and secure them with the screw. For the SSD there are mount plates at the side of the case, so I will install it there. Now it's time for the power supply. I have a full modular power supply, so I don't have to use all of the included cables. to place the power supply with the fan facing down. Since the graphics card will get enough airflow, and I will place the case on a flat surface. The power supply is fixed from the outside of the case with 4 screws. Most power supplies have one cable for multiple drives, so one cable for 2 or more drives is enough. Connect all the drives with the power supply. Next, the data cables. Connect all the drives with the ZX6G port on your motherboard. So I now connect one cable after another. You should try different paths for each other cables. Find one that uses the wall cable so there are no loops hanging around in the case. Take your time, the cables usually take about half the time of the whole assembly if you've done it right. We connect all the motherboard's energy plugs. Have a look in the manual of how many there are. Next, the graphics card. It's already in the data slot, the PCIe slot, so we just need some power. Most modern graphics cards use one 6-pin and one 8-pin connector. My graphics card only use a 6-pin connector. The plugs should go easily in. Most modern cases have the possibility of cable management, so you should use it. It doesn't only look better and is easier accessible if you, for example, want to add another RAM stick. It also helps keeping the PC cooler, because the air can flow better through the case without any disturbing cables. In the end, you can use zip ties to fix all the cables. I prefer twist ties because it's reusable. If you got that, you just have to check every connection once more, close the PC and fire that baby up. It's alive.